Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Vicki Bitsika, and I'm from the School of Science and Technology at the University of New England. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all. We are so excited about this launch and inaugural meeting of the New England Northwest branch of the Royal Society of New South Wales. First, I'd like to make an acknowledgement to country. In the spirit of reconciliation, the University of New England respects and acknowledges that its people, programs and facilities are built on land and surrounded by a sense of belonging, both ancient and contemporary, of the world's oldest living culture. In doing so, UNE values and respects Indigenous knowledge systems as a vital part of the knowledge capital of Australia. Now, this afternoon, we're very lucky to have a number of prominent people here today, and I'd like to introduce the first of them, Dr. Suzanne Pond. Dr. Pond has served as President of the Royal Society of New South Wales since 2021. She is a physician, a scientist, and company director with deep expertise in biotechnology, and has an outstanding track record of creating impact by combining disciplines and working at the intersections between them. Dr. Pond serves on several for-profit, government, and not-for-profit boards. Most recently, she was appointed to the inaugural chair of the New South Wales Smart Sensing Network and director of Sydney Nano, a multidisciplinary initiative at the University of Sydney. Dr. Pond is adjunct professor in the Faculty of Engineering at the University of Sydney and was named in 2013 as one of the top 100 women of influence by the Australian Financial Review and Westpac. I'd now like to call upon Dr. Pond to launch the inaugural meeting of the New England Northwestern branch of the Royal Society of New South Wales. Dr. Pond.
Thank you, Vicki, and good afternoon. Good afternoon, still afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be part of this evening's event to celebrate the launch and the inaugural meeting of the Royal Society of New South Wales New England Northwest branch. The Society takes New South Wales in its name very seriously by promoting active branches across the state. In Western New South Wales, the Hunter region, Southern Highlands, and now in the New England Northwest region. Each branch has its own distinctive character, each branch has its own vibrant economic, educational, scientific, industrial, agricultural, civic, and artistic communities. Each branch designs its own programs of activities around the focal point of the Society's goal, vision, mission, the whole idea of the Society, which is to foster knowledge creation and dissemination for national good. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the New England Northwest branch puts its own distinctive branch on a society that is 200 years old. Unlike many other learned societies, the Royal Society of New South Wales spans the entire spectrum of the human intellect, the sciences and the humanities, which I really enjoy about it because of my interest in the intersection between disciplines. By way of example, our two most recent distinguished fellows have been acclaimed Shakespearean actor and director John Bell, AO, OBE, and the one before that was Cathy Foley, Australia's chief scientist. So you can see the spread of interest in the Society. Today's Society comprises 700 members, 450 of whom are fellows and 250 are members or associate members. The New England Northwest branch was able to be formed over a 2-year gestation with under the leadership of Chris Armstrong and Trevor Brown, amongst others. Once it reached a critical mass of members, it's got, I think, around 12 members now, which was sufficient to stage the launch of the branch. It needs more members, of course, and I won't go into detail here about how to join the society, but I encourage you to join, and you'll find the full information about the classes of membership and how to join on our website, which is newly refurbished. It's only by drawing people together in a room, metaphorical or in person, as we are here today, together from diverse disciplines and from diverse backgrounds, diverse age groups, that we can investigate, elaborate, inform and influence public discourse on the highly complex so-called wicked problems that we face in the 21st century. The Royal Society of New South Wales and Learned Academies Forum held in Government House on the 14th of November is just one example of drawing the disciplines together to talk about a wicked problem. The theme of the forum was threats to democracy, and it brought in philosophers, public servants, foreign policy scholars, economists, Indigenous scholars, authors and journalists, expert in machine learning and artificial intelligence, biomedical sciences, neurosciences, to name but a few of the areas of expertise that were represented in the discussions throughout the day. And I can't do justice to that day here, but you can view the proceedings on the Society's YouTube channel, perhaps by yourself or by bringing together a group of colleagues or family and friends to watch the various segments of the day together. As I mentioned when I was here just over a year ago, and also in September at the inaugural lecture delivered by one of the stellar mathematicians from the University of New England, the Society is actually not new to New England. Geologist Professor Richard Stanton AO joined the Society in 1949 and was one of its longest standing members. He was made an inaugural fellow of the Society in 2009 and elevated to distinguished fellowship in 2012. He was instrumental in the successful operation of the New England branch, as it was called, and served as its long-standing chair. His obituary was published in the Society's journal in 2020. When he retired from the University of New England in 1986 and moved to Canberra, the New England branch fell away because of lack of membership. But not before in March that year, when he was part of a ceremony held at the university in conjunction with the 25th anniversary of the New England branch. And the occasion was the presentation of the full collection of the Society's journal and proceedings since it was first published in 1822 to the then Chancellor of the University, Robert Robertson Cunningham. This collection is held in the Royal Society of New South Wales room in the Dixon Library at the University of New England. And every issue of the journal that has been published since has been deposited in the Dixon Library, which holds a complete collection. And I'm very pleased tonight to add to that collection by presenting a copy through the New England Northwest branch to be deposited in the Dixon Library of the Society's just released book on its early history. Which nicely matches the colour of the banner. And I tried to wear teal too. Its title is Knowledge for a Nation, Origins of the Royal Society of New South Wales, and its author is historian Dr. Anne Coote. To quote the author when she spoke about her book when we launched it on the 2nd of October this year, and I quote, "My book is about beginnings. It takes the Society's story from its foundation in 1821 up to the outbreak of World War I. The Society was at the peak of its public prominence in this period. Its monthly meetings held in Sydney were reported in detail by the leading papers. The main title of the book, Knowledge for a Nation, sums up what the book has to say about the Society's purpose at the time and is still its purpose, to foster knowledge creation for the national good. These are the very words you remember that I used at the beginning of my remarks. Given our speakers for tonight, I note that Anne Coote's book includes a chapter on women and the society. But throughout the nearly 100 years covered in Anne's book, women were not allowed to join the society. She points out, however, that women were encouraged to attend the splendid conversazioni events, which from 1879 were usually held in the Great Hall of the University of Sydney. And you'll see that the cover of the book is taken from the illustration of a conversazione in the Great Hall in 1884. Resplendent with women, each member was allowed to bring 2 women to the conversazione, provided they were family members. Oh. And this was published on the front cover of the Illustrated Sydney News on the 25th of October that year, and is in the Society's archives, from which we fished it to put it on the cover of the book. So women were considered unable to cope with intellectual considerations, discussions. They were finally allowed to join the society after a council meeting on the 26th of June in 1935. The minutes from that meeting, which I have transcribed, record, and I quote, "The Society had received a letter from Messrs. Allen and Hemsley stating that in their opinion, there was nothing in the rules to prevent women from becoming members." And this appeared in the minutes without any previous record in the minutes in the years leading up to that. So there must have been a lot of discussion in the background, and also a build-up of pressure. 11 women were admitted at the next 2 general meetings, and paleontologist Dr. Ida Brown, admitted in the first cohort, became the first woman to be elected president in 1954. Last year, the Society celebrated the winner of the inaugural Ida Brown Early Career Medal, which will be awarded again this year. So it was a very good turn of the circle to get us to this point. I'll be announcing the winners of this year's awards on the 4th of December in Sydney, and invite you to consider attending the annual dinner and award presentations also in Sydney in Parliament House in Macquarie Street on the 7th of March next year. More than 200 people will gather for the dinner, and we will be joined by our patron, Her Excellency the Honourable Margaret Beazley, ACKC, Governor of New South Wales, who will attend to present the awards. And as added bonus, after dinner speaker will be the 2024 Australian of the Year, Professor Georgina Long, who's recognised for her groundbreaking research on targeted therapies, indeed cure for melanoma. So I do hope to see many of you there. There were quite a few of you there last year, and it's always a very good night and a good way to bring the society together. So congratulations to the New England Northwest branch of the Royal Society of New South Wales. Before I launch it, would you like to come up, Chris? I would like to present this book to the Dixon Library through you, Chris.
Thank you very much. I've come colour-coded as well.
You have, yes.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'm delighted to officially launch the branch and congratulate those of you who've led it to this point. So I think we deserve it. And now I hand over to our patron, Her Excellency the Honourable Margaret Beazley, ACKC, Governor of New South Wales, who's prepared a video to mark the occasion. So thank you.
Bujiri Gamarua, Dian Babana Gamarada, Gadigal Nura. In the language of the Gadigal people, the traditional owners of the land from which I speak here at Government House, I convey my greetings to all of you attending this evening's event in Armidale and those watching online. I acknowledge the Anawan people, the traditional custodians of the land on which you are meeting, and I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. And I'm delighted to address you on this landmark occasion, the inaugural meeting of the New England and North West branch of the Royal Society of New South Wales. As Anne Coote recounts in the recently launched book on the origins of the Royal Society in New South Wales, governors have had a long connection to the Society. These include Thomas Brisbane, the 6th Governor of New South Wales, astronomer and President of the short-lived Philosophical Society of Australasia, and Sir William Denison, the 11th Governor, a skilled engineer and knowledgeable conchologist, cheekily referred to in the press at the time as His Scientific Excellency, whose invigoration of the Australian Society in 1855 was a crucial step towards the development of the Society as we know it today. This relationship continues today in my role as the 39th Governor of our state, including supporting the annual Royal Society and 4 Learned Academies Forum here at Government House. At this year's forum, held on the 14th of November, the theme, Threats to Democracy, was the subject of important and well-researched discussions from a variety of disciplines. The collaboration between the Governor and the Society in its Ideas at the House presentations has become another important aspect of the relationship. These presentations provide a platform to explore important and influential ideas, and now, with its live stream, attracts an increasingly large regional, national and international audience. Since its first iteration online, we've discussed mapping, music, science, Shakespeare, philosophy, politics, and, courtesy of Richard Tognetti, have even considered the theme of nothing. Our most recent event, now available on the Society's YouTube channel, focused on the timely question, The Big Thaw, Who Governs the Antarctic's Ice? The New England and North West has historically been well served by scholarship, teaching the arts and industry at universities, TAFE, state and federal agencies, industry organisations, research and innovations partnerships, schools and civic groups. And it was a pleasure for Dennis and I to spend time in the area in February this year and visit a range of these institutions and businesses, organisations and community groups. Recent environmental events, the COVID pandemic, shifting policy emphasis, geopolitical issues, industrial dynamics and population decline are all challenging the resilience of your region, whilst also opening it up to really new possibilities. The establishment of your branch will provide a forum for multidisciplinary interaction on matters concerning the development and use of knowledge in and for the region. Beyond the immediate priorities of universities and state agencies, you, as leaders, have the opportunity to act together to fill gaps and add impetus in the best use of knowledge for the region. And so I commend you on the theme for this evening's event, Women in STEM, and I thank Dr. Amy Moss and Dr. Marissa Betts for their contribution. As patron of the Royal Society of New South Wales, I look forward to seeing the New England and North West branch go from strength to strength as you enrich lives through knowledge by promoting the research, inquiry, discussion and debate so critical to our future.
And now we come to hearing from our speakers, the first one being Dr. Amy Moss. Dr. Moss is a postdoctoral research fellow in poultry nutrition at the University of New England, exploring nutritional strategies to improve the efficiency and sustainability of chicken meat and egg production. One such focus is her project on the implementation of food waste diets for poultry funded by the ARC DECRA program. Her research reduces the environmental impact of poultry production while also keeping a focus on economic sustainability to help ease the pressure of rising costs on the affordability of chicken meat and eggs. Dr. Moss was recently named a Young Tall Poppy of New South Wales for her food waste research and her commitment to mentoring young upcoming scientists through various programs. Please welcome her.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Vicki. So I'd just like to start by giving a bit of background to myself. So I grew up mostly on the south coast of New South Wales, in around Shell Harbour, which, if you're not familiar, it's a couple hours south of Sydney. I grew up there with my mum, my dad, and my younger brother. I wasn't from an academic family. My mum finished year 12 and worked in a supermarket pretty much since then. My dad left in year 10 and did different handyman jobs throughout his life. So one thing my mum did, though, that I think really set me down this path was she always talked about how one day when I finish school, I'll go to the biggest school of all, university, you know. So I was always really excited. Okay, you know, I really want to go to uni, but I had no idea what for. So I finished high school, and that then came the big question, well, what next? I had absolutely no idea of the breadth of different STEM careers that were out there. I had two passions, science and animals. So I knew I definitely wanted to do something along these lines. So I thought, oh, well, I like science. Maybe I'll be a scientist. But the only scientist that I really knew was Abby from NCIS. And I didn't really want to be a goth in a lab. So I thought, well, maybe that's not the best choice. All right, well, I like animals. What do you do if you like animals? Well, you be a vet, I guess. And I did really like, I thought Dr. Chris Brown was pretty cute, so maybe that would be a good career choice for me. I was 17 at the time, so I thought, okay, I'll try and get into vet science, and the closest vet school to me was Sydney Uni, and it was only a couple of hours away. So I thought, okay, this could be doable, except I didn't get the mark, so that didn't happen. But then the next best degree for me was the Bachelor of Animal and Veterinary Bioscience, and I actually didn't even get the mark for that. But I went to a disadvantaged high school, and so I got a few extra marks, and it scraped me in there. So I started my undergrad degree at Sydney Uni for AVBS. So it was great. It gave me a few different opportunities. It was close to home, so I didn't have to travel too far, and I could still live with my nan, who's in Gymea. Luckily, I could get the HEX Help loan, which covered all the fees, and I scraped by with Centrelink on $70 a week. I don't know how I managed that. And Sydney Uni was fantastic because it had a lot of supports for undergrad, including heaps of mental health and financial support, which is great because I was also mentally ill and broke. So I scraped it together and made uni work. But there was a lot of challenges, including those that I've just sort of mentioned, but also different perceptions too. On my first day of university, we were talking about ATARs, as you do, because it's very important to people who've just finished high school. And I sort of said, oh, well, actually, I didn't even get the cutoff. I didn't get the mark to get into this degree, but I just managed to get in. And I got challenged with, if you didn't even clear the ATAR cutoff, why are you here? So people might think, oh, well, they're just being snobs. And they were. But it was a perception that was held, and not only by my peers, but even myself. I was sort of wondering, okay, you know, why am I even here? But I finished my undergrad degree, and in the last year, I started doing an honours project with chickens, and I absolutely loved it. I was like, finally, I found my passion. I know why I'm here now. And so my professor at the time asked me, well, have you ever thought about doing a PhD? And honestly, it had never even popped into my mind. He said, why don't you take the whole weekend to think about it? I think I messaged him back 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do my PhD. It didn't take me long. And it was one of the best decisions I've made. It was fantastic. I finally met some great like-minded people. There was lots of good role models around me who were guiding me. Sydney University had a lot of different research and academic development opportunities. There was still challenges though. It was a massive thing. That's a picture of me and my turkey Po. I would work massive 7-day weeks. I'd be working 5 days a week on my PhD. And then on the weekend, I worked on a chicken farm to try and support myself throughout the studies. We were working massive hours. My supervisor really put the pressure on, at least 10 hours, 12 hours per day. Hence why I'm sitting on the couch reading articles with my turkey Po. She was my little companion. And it was very much a work first culture. So there wasn't a lot of room for family and for other things like that. So when I finished my PhD, I thought, okay, I've done Sydney Uni now. I'm ready to get out of the city. I was ready to have a bit of a tree change. And UNE had this amazing poultry group, and I'd heard so much about it. There's so many people. Professor Mingenchok definitely was one of the main people that brought me here. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to come to UNE. And so this change to UNE has been probably the next best decision of my life that I did. And I met some really amazing people since I've been here. So some of the biggest opportunities have been the friends and the role models that I've been able to make since I've come here. Particularly Professor Tamsin Crowley has been just the most amazing role model for me in my career, and also friendship as well. And Hiep as well, who's another postdoc that I work very closely with. I wouldn't have been able to get to where I am today without those two ladies. I've also had lots of other mentorship, including from Vicki, which I'm very grateful for, and many other women in particular in the faculty who are just more than gracious with their time and happy to help out us younger females as well. And UNE itself has also been extremely supportive of me. So the first year I came here on a short 1-year project, and I needed to then get more funding to continue doing a postdoc. And UNE at the time was having these 3-year research grants, and I managed to get one of those. And it was the most fantastic thing because it allowed me to focus on my passion and focus on research for 3 years, which then I think is the real reason that I managed to get a DECRA in the end, because I had that focus and I didn't have to worry about teaching and other things and trying to juggle 12-month contracts. That takes up a lot of your time. And then industry as well. I've been lucky that the poultry industry is a really tight-knit industry, and they've been very supportive of my career too. There have been challenges, as with everything. Certainly postdocing presents a lot of challenges. Contract to contract research has a lot of instability and uncertainty around it. We're always wondering where our next job's going to come from, how are we going to pay our mortgage, basically. So that's fun. Not to mention, all the other challenges that we've all been through: drought, fire, plague, staff cuts, and a tornado. So it has been a crazy few years. And of course, then there's always the people that like to get in the way. I've faced some difficult personalities during my postdoc. One person in particular told me when I was sharing with them, my worries about getting a more permanent job at UNE. Stop worrying about your career. Why don't you take up a hobby like knitting? I can't help but think maybe if I was a man, I wouldn't have faced that reaction. But somehow, amongst all of the fun and the chaos of research, I managed to buy a house and acquire even more turkeys. I also started foster caring about 5 years ago, and I've had my foster daughter Lila for 3 years now, which has been an amazing experience. And I had my son. So the picture, the first one up on the left, that's him at an Ideas Exchange conference when he was almost 1 year old. So it ended up that I had no one that could watch him. He's very clingy. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to have to take him to this conference and see how I go. I was very nervous about it, didn't know what people would think. And it was just such an amazing experience, really, because everyone was so accepting of it. They absolutely loved it. And when it came for me to give my talk, everyone was fighting over who would get to hold him. And, I thought, okay, I'll only have to do this once. But of course, here we go. A whole year later, he's still just as clingy. And of course, he came to the next conference with me too. You can't be what you can't see. This is a quote from Marian Wright Ardelman, who is an activist for the rights of children. So she believed that children are less likely to be inspired for their future if they don't have role models. So this really resonates with me, I guess, firstly from the point of foster care that I've been involved with for the last few years. We're there not only to provide a safe home for children and a loving environment, but also to show them what life can actually be, and you don't have to follow in the footsteps of maybe some of the other role models that you've seen in your life. But we can actually apply this too to other young people and even to myself. I realized over my career, I would never have gotten to where I am today, certainly not in the time that I have, without all of the amazing role models around me showing me what's possible. So in summary, what I've learned. Public schools have very little education about STEM opportunities. I certainly had no idea except for what I saw on television. And I suspect today's children are about the same, except it's social media rather than TV. I haven't been in school for 12 years, so that's just an assumption, but yeah. So STEM mentor programs are quite common. I've done quite a few especially over my PhD and early postdoc years, and they're great fun. But we probably need to expand on those and do more of it. And maybe even most importantly, inform parents, because it was those conversations that I had with my mum from the time that I was a little kid that sort of made me think, okay, university is a great idea. It's going to open up more doors for me. Success in academia, at least within STEM, really relies on your ability to build your career very fast. So during those early PhD and postdoc years, it's pretty tough, you know. You're just trying to build up your profile and make a name for yourself. It's also tricky because it's a time when you've got a lot of job insecurity because of the postdoc short-term contracts. But it's a time where there's a lot going on in your life, positive and negative. If you're younger, you could be getting married, having children, starting a young family. So overcoming these challenges and really getting that head start that you need is much easier when you have the support and mentorship. And I've been very lucky to have a lot of that over the time that I've been working as a scientist. Not only for personal development, but also just for encouragement on those days when you want to quit, just to say, just hang in there, you'll be okay. And you need the opportunities such as grants and awards to come up that you can apply for to help build your profile, and also just a little bit of luck as well. So yeah, that's basically what I had to share. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. We come to our next speaker, Dr. Marissa Betts. Dr. Betts is a senior lecturer in earth science, specialising in geology and invertebrate paleontology, with a focus on some of the earliest complex skeletons in the fossil record. Her research primarily investigates the early Cambrian period in regions such as South Australia, Antarctica, China, Mongolia, and Canada. Recently, her work has extended to the Middle Cambrian of Queensland and the Cretaceous periods in northwest New South Wales and Western Queensland. Dr. Betts works both on the nuts and bolts of paleontology and their broader applications to geological questions. Her research aids in dating and correlating rock formations globally, interpreting past environments, reconstructing ancient continental plates, and refining the geological timescale. Dr. Betts has been recognised as a superstar of STEM, New South Wales Young Tall Poppy, Voicey medalist, and Walter Houchin, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this correctly, medalist, and is an ARC-funded researcher. She is also committed to advocating for women and girls who aspire to a career in STEM, particularly in the earth sciences. Marissa, join us.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, and thank you so much for the invitation to come and speak here tonight. It is a great honour and a great pleasure. Big kudos to the New South Wales Royal Society for choosing Women in STEM as their theme for this evening. It's a really important issue, and there's lots to celebrate, but there's also lots of work to be done as well. And so hopefully in my talk, I'll be able to oh, sorry, too tall. Be able to talk about both of those things. Diversity comes in all sorts of different flavours. I guess I talk from my own personal experience as a woman in geoscience. But in my talk, I'll also touch on other aspects of diversity as well. I hope my talk doesn't jump around too much. There was lots I wanted to say and I don't have that much time. So in the spirit of Amy's talk, where she talked about her pathway and her journey through STEM, this is a little snapshot of what I've been getting up to. Not included is my unfinished visual art degree from a long time ago. But on the left, some shots from some of the really exciting experiences that I remember as an undergraduate studying earth science at Macquarie University in Sydney. I then went on and did an honours and then PhD with Glenn Brock, who's down at the bottom there, one of my great mentors. I ended up doing a postdoc at Northwest University in Xi'an in China, and I also had a postdoc here at the University of New England. And through that work, I was able to do some really exciting things and study rocks in Western Mongolia, the Northwest Territories of Canada, and also North China and South China. Now, as a research fellow, I have the great privilege to supervise some wonderful students and pay forward the excellent mentorship and the wonderful experiences that I had as a student. So I think it's fitting for a Women in STEM theme that I work on some of the very first suits of armour in the fossil record in terms of the resilience, right? And so I work on this group of fossils. They represent the very first complex skeletons in the fossil record. Biomineralisation, the development of complex external skeletons, is a hallmark of what we call the Cambrian explosion of life. So this is over 500 million years ago. And we see the very sudden appearance in the geological record of all of the different major phyla, all of the major body plans in a geological blink of an eye. And studying these things is really exciting. They're very small, so across the bottom of that slide is 1 centimetre. But we can look at early animal evolution, phylogeny, their relationships, their paleobiology, and have a go at maybe reconstructing them as well. And also we can use them to date rocks, correlate rocks, and to hopefully do some continental reconstructions of what the Earth looked like a long time ago. Shout out to my collaborators who are visiting. I'm also, like I said, very privileged to supervise a wonderful cohort of HDR students, PhD students, master's students, and undergraduate research projects who are working on branches of this kind of research. I think it is a great privilege of mine to be able to chaperone them on their own research journeys. Does not escape me that all of my PhD and HDR students happen to be female, and that was not by design. It's really hard to do that on purpose. So I think even more that it's I am an important role model to these people. The thing I think about all the time is something called the leaky pipeline. Has anyone here heard of the leaky pipeline? Yeah, a few nods in the room. So the leaky pipe, the idea is that we start with maybe 50-50 female-male undergraduates. And as people progress through this pipeline, we start to lose people gradually, and there are thresholds. The biggest one we see is this transition from doing a PhD, finishing a PhD, and then getting an academic career started. And that's when we see the biggest drop-off of women in this pipeline. In the geosciences, there's plenty of data to support that this is the case. And this graph on the top right there is from a paper from 2020. This is about, on the left there, you see that the people or the percentage of women at level A, so that's that first level that you get into after you finish your PhD, is pretty healthy, more or less. But then by the time that we get to those very high levels, the level E, the professor levels, those numbers drop off very considerably. And why does that happen? Why do we lose women from geoscience? So there's a wonderful talk or work by Dr. Mel Finch, who's at the University of Melbourne, and she's identified through looking at different data-driven work. These are 8 different things here that she's identified that become barriers to women continuing in the pipeline. And she thinks of it like a seesaw, right? So it doesn't matter how much you love your subject, these things can build up over time. It might be one thing, but more often it's an accumulation of lots of smaller things. That means that the balance gets tipped and people make that decision to leave. What I don't like about this diagram up here is that it sort of gives you the impression that people that leak out of the pipeline are some kind of brown sludge. And it's not the case, right? These are people that have come a long way down this pipeline, and they've had to make a really, really hard choice based on these kinds of things that are happening in that bottom right of the slide. There is a strategy, though, now that we know what the leaky pipeline is and how it works, there's a strategy, right? So you want as many people to come into that pipeline as possible. So we've got to attract people into the pipeline, retain them, and then progress them through the pipeline so that they get to those very high levels. And there needs to be strategies to actually make that work, okay? The reason it's really important is because there's a thing called the diversity innovation paradox. And it's a simple thing, but it's very well supported with data and several papers obviously published about it. And I like the PNAS paper here, diversity breeds innovation. Yet underrepresented groups that diversify organisations have less successful careers within them. And it's not just about innovation, it's also about a financial bottom line, right? So even this paper here, firms with more women in the C-suite are more profitable. So when we think about addressing EDI issues, we're not just doing it for underrepresented groups, the benefits are for everybody. And so I think about it like this pyramid, this triangle. Most of the work done in this space is done by people in the bottom part of this pyramid. Okay, it's done by individuals in isolated programs on a volunteer basis using soft money. And let's be honest, it's mostly women doing this work, even though it benefits everybody. But what you really need for institutional change, or the biggest change, is to get buy-in from the very highest part of that pyramid. You need structural reform. And to do that, you need institutional commitment and hard money. But in the earth sciences, and that's where I'm at, we've got some pretty big problems as well at the moment. And it's not really just a leak anymore. And we're talking about everybody. We're hemorrhaging people out of earth science. And this has been going on in a serious way for around COVID, okay, when this started. And this has been documented in the papers and in the media. Australia's unfolding geoscience malady. Australia badly needs earth science skills, but universities are cutting the supply. Geoscience on the chopping block. Earth science is a road at Macquarie University. So even the university that I studied at, their earth science department is completely gone. All of those people lost their jobs. It's also happening in New Zealand. So in Otago University, they have a wonderful geoscience department, really undercut. Lots of people have lost their jobs there. And it's happening now again. I think probably it's driven by the international student caps. And we're worried very much for Wollongong at the moment. The issue, I think, with geoscience is that it can be a complex topic. Geoscience has a hard PR spin to do, right? Because geoscience has a very strong relationship with climate change, has a strong relationship with, or it has the reputation of industry is very poor. The experience of women in mining is shocking, and human rights issues. So where do you think the important minerals in your phone come from? You don't want to think about it, really. But it's very important to remember, and it's ironic to sort of think that the capabilities and the expertise of the mining industries will play a fundamental role in the fight against climate change, because where do we think we're going to get important critical metals to make batteries for your electric cars? The Australian government know that this is important, so we have a critical mineral strategy for 2030, and they say that our critical mineral sector is well placed to seize the opportunities of the clean energy transition. But I say, with what graduates? And with what expertise? But think of a geoscientist, right? And I asked ChatGPT to think of a geoscientist. I wrote in, what does a geoscientist look like? Or make a picture of a geoscientist. And it comes up with this man. He has a beard, he's got his hat on, he's in the field, he's got his boots on, he's got what looks like it might be a hammer, and he's bashing something. Okay, so, and I don't blame ChatGPT for creating this image, right? Because if you Google image search paleontologist or geologist, it comes up with this. These are all real results that I search for, right? So it's, the diversity is low, shall we say. It's not just in terms of men and women. Geosciences are so biased towards the able-bodied as well, right? A geoscience degree typically requires field work. You can't actually get your geoscience degree until you do the mapping capstone. But that can be a relatively serious physical challenge depending on your capabilities, right? I'm supervising with Nick Campione in the room here, Eleanor Bidach for her master's, and her whole life she's wanted to be a paleontologist, but she's never been able to get a geoscience degree. So she's so tenacious, right? Like, she will not be stopped. And she's had to go around the back way, done the scenic route, I guess, to get where she is today. So there are some standard biases in geoscience that exclude a wide variety of people from learning about how the Earth works. I feel like everybody should know how the Earth works, but then also from contributing to important research problems. So I'll finish up. There are I jumped around a bit to a few different kinds of topics, but I didn't have very long and I have lots to say. So there is some hard work by individuals and small groups that have resulted in incremental but very important changes in the EDI space. But the most significant and important changes will happen when things are led from the top down. Earth science in Australia at the moment is in peril, but strategies that improve equity, diversity and inclusion benefit everybody, and they are key for developing an innovative and resilient earth science community. Thank you.
Marissa, you've given us a lot to think about and to be sad about and angry about. Hopefully optimistic after we work through those emotions. Let me introduce the members of the discussion panel next. I'd like each person, after I introduce them, to come and sit on stage. Our first panel member is Kate Armstrong-Smith. Kate is the co-founder and CEO of Athelia, a storytelling research lab that champions human creativity in the age of intelligent technologies. Athelia works with some of the top storytellers and studios globally to model and protect story IP while allowing creatives to harness new intelligent tools. With over 15 years of experience across dynamic content development and media asset management, Kate's portfolio spans collaborations with organisations such as the ABC, Sydney Festival, TEDx Sydney, and Amazon Studios. She's a Churchill Fellow and advocate for new audience engagement with new technologies. She remains deeply committed to connecting creators with today's evolving audiences and advancing storytelling for new generations. Welcome, Kate. Our second panel member is Jena Glover. Jena is a highly experienced architect with nearly two decades of expertise in the field, specialising in sustainable and off-grid architecture and building. After earning a Bachelor of Design in Architecture from the University of Newcastle in 2006, Jena gained valuable experience working on diverse projects across the United States and Australia. She completed a Master of Architecture at Griffith University in 2015, honing her skills in design, innovation and research. As a registered architect in New South Wales, Jena has become a recognised leader in creating thoughtful, environmentally conscious designs tailored to the unique demands of regional and urban contexts. For the past 15 years, Jena has contributed to international and local projects, including residential and commercial developments, before founding Epic Architecture in 2019. Welcome, Jena. Our third panel member is Dr. Rebecca Williams. Dr. Williams is lecturer in neuroscience at the University of New England. Her research uses magnetic research imaging to understand brain changes due to aging and disease. She completed her PhD at the University of Queensland and then went on to complete a postdoctoral research fellowship at the University of Calgary in Canada. Prior to joining UNE, she was a lecturer in psychology at Charles Darwin University. Thank you. Welcome. And can I please invite Amy and Marissa to join our panel? So in order to extend the conversation we've just had, which has been extremely interesting and actually required a day rather than a meeting, I would like to give panel members a question and we can go through and each person can answer that one. Answer the question from their own perspective. And I guess the first question is, in reflecting on your careers in the various contexts and formats that you've lived them, can you think of a particular challenge that you encountered that you felt was unique to a person working in STEM, but more importantly, can you tell us about a strategy that you might have used to overcome that challenge? Kate.
So is it particular to working in STEM, or can I
You can
include
broaden.
the arts and make it STEAM?
You can, please go ahead and make it STEAM.
So it's a moment where you used your background in STEAM to approach or solve a situation. All right, the situation I had where I got to use both my STEM and entertainment was about 10 years ago, when we had just developed a idea that maybe Storia wasn't linear. Maybe it was actually a system and there were interconnected parts. And virtual reality cameras were just starting to come into the entertainment industry. And I was trying to record whales with the UN elders from the UN nation. And we were trying to document the whale dreaming. And so we had boats, elders, cameramen, and story. And it was, I think, an excellent image of standing in the middle of, we were on the ocean. We had cameramen diving. We had elders singing. We had about 20 whales appear and start doing figure of eights around the boat. And we had no script and no story. And when we applied the idea of story as a system, we were able to document and collect a series of story and cultural data and put it together in a way that we couldn't have done had we tried to write a story just on paper. So we used, systems theory. We used cameras that were actually developed in New South Wales. And we used this idea of culture to create something we'd never happened before.
Thank you, Jena.
Hi, everybody. So I have a very long background in architecture. I started in the late 1990s I was born in 1983, so I wasn't that old, I guess, when I started. I was 16, started working in an architect's office just to make some extra cash. And I ended up progressing pretty, quickly. I really loved it. It was great. And I went overseas for a study abroad semester. And I stayed forever. Here I am. So Australia was a good pick. I guess my story, architecture and sustainability to me has always been hand in hand. I think there's a lot of data and technology and amazing opportunities that we can incorporate into our building structures and ecosystem of the built environment. It's always been a huge interest of mine. When I went to the University of Newcastle for my undergrad, they just promoted this. They just opened the floodgates. So I went back to South Dakota in the United States, very Republican, very cowboy country, and very much not sustainable. So here I come in, super excited, like overzealous about everything that has to do with sustainability that I'm bringing back from Australia. And I'm working to design a middle school. I was in a big meeting, design meeting. I was very lucky. I worked very closely with the principal architect. I still do to this day. And I said, let's get the systems. Let's have perspex on the ground so the kids can see the geothermal and how all the pipes are running and how the electricity works. And let's get this as an educational tool. Like, I was really excited. And I said, and the studies that are coming out for natural daylighting is fabulous. So I go on this big rant. I love talking. So all of a sudden, everyone goes quiet, and the principal goes, Isn't that kind of a woman thing? Natural light in a classroom. Isn't that just kind of a woman thing? Oh my God. And from that point on, I'm like, I'm going to prove them wrong. That's it. I'm doing it. I'm going to do everything in my power to learn everything I can to turn this ship around. And today, I am now their in-house expert on sustainable design. And so you wouldn't believe that my name is now coming up in everything that has to do. Oh, we have an expert on the team. So after 20 years, I come full circle. So that was my moment.
Thank you, Rebecca.
So when asked the question, what challenges do you encounter in STEM? The only real answer for me is all of them. It's difficult being a researcher. It's difficult being a scientist, and as you said, it's difficult to get work, and it's hard to get there, especially when you don't have money to get yourself through the undergrad and the many years of university. I do have one example of a story I like to tell of a challenge. It's not really to have been a woman. It's just a fun little story. I think I'll tell. I think you'll appreciate it. So in Calgary, when I was doing my postdoc, I was there for 10 years. I went for a 2-year fellowship and ended up staying for 10 years because I got into the sport of curling. But I digress. I digress. When I was in Calgary, I was asked by NASA to help out on a project. So the Canadian Space Agency funded a professor at Calgary, and he had this collaboration with NASA. He asked me to be involved. So I've been working and publishing with NASA, and they're really interested in understanding how the human brain is going to change when the astronauts are being sent to Mars, because it's something like a 3-year round trip. They need to be up in a microgravity environment floating around for a very long time. So the question is, what's happening to their brains? So that was the project that I'm still involved in. And we managed to get some data from astronauts who were going to and from the International Space Station. So my expertise is magnetic resonance imaging, MRI. Those big scanners, you go to the hospital, they're loud. Yep. So we managed to get some MRI images from astronauts before and after they went to the space station. And one thing we found was that actually it's really difficult to look at their brains when they get back from space. And that's because our brains are used to being on the, under the force of the Earth, right? And when you're up in space, the brain is floating up, and the fluid that encapsulates our brain is no longer draining as well as what it does on Earth. So our MRIs, they looked funny, for lack of a better word. We didn't really, we couldn't analyze them as well as what we could because the brain was essentially floating up and the fluid was going up into parts of the brain that it never would usually go into. So this is a challenge. How can we understand astronauts' brains if we can't even look at their MRIs accurately? So we had to try to recreate this problem on Earth so that we can understand it and fix it. So the challenge was, how do we do that? How do we recreate microgravity on Earth? And I came up with a bit of a solution. I stood on my head for an hour before going into an MRI scan. So that was my challenge, recreate space, so have the brain kind of floating and I kind of, me and my colleagues got into a position where I could essentially stand on my head and was fixed in place. And then I went straight into an MRI scanner to look at my brain because that kind of recreated the problem, not as much, but yes, that was my challenge. That's how I fixed it.
And you used the great Australian tradition of using yourself as a participant in research.
Always.
Amy.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, like you said, all of them, all of the challenges. But probably the biggest challenge that I faced specifically as a woman was becoming a mother, both with the foster care system and a biological mother, just for, well, the amount of time that it does take up, you have to become very efficient. So I actually view becoming a mother as a thing that benefited my career, to be honest. But not everyone shares that perception. And probably the one specific thing I've been discriminated on in job interviews for it. And that's still happening to this day. So that's where, you know, what Marissa was saying, we've come pretty far, definitely, but there's definitely still barriers to overcome that we're still facing. And my way of beating that is just to be resilient and yeah, just to keep at it no matter what they say, because I know I'm great at my job and yeah, my kids are certainly not a hindrance to that.
Thank you. Marissa.
I've had this whole time to think about an answer and I think I'm like you guys, like the whole lot, right? And I think back to that seesaw diagram, you know, where it's this sort of, sometimes it just feels like death by 1,000 cuts, right? Like, what is it today? Is it, oh, the PPE doesn't fit me or doesn't fit my students, we have to get something else? Or did they speak to me like that because, would they have spoken to me like that if I was a man? Like you was thinking about these things in the back of your head. And the imposter syndrome is amazingly bad. And so maybe the biggest challenge is overcoming that voice in your head that tells you that you're not good enough, and that maybe you shouldn't say that. And how do you overcome it? I think maybe I think about the seesaw again, and I think about the thing that I really love, you know, and the reason that I'm here doing what I'm doing, which is that I do love geology. And I love that I get to be a researcher in paleoscience and geoscience. And so at the moment, my seesaw is still balanced in that direction. So, yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Let me round off this discussion by giving you a visualization. You have a 16-year-old girl standing in front of you, and she really would love to go into a STEM career. She doesn't know quite what, but that's really her passion. That's what she wants to do, but she's nervous, she doesn't feel confident, and she doesn't think that she's competitive. What are the 3 personal characteristics that you would talk to her about in setting her up to achieve her goal? Or strategies. Sometimes it's hard to talk about important personal qualities. It might be strategies.
Being first, I'm like, okay, I've got to think about this. My 14-year-old daughter is actually here, so I'm gonna like use you as my focus. What strategies? three things. Curiosity. If you are curious about science, then create time every day and every week to explore that curiosity. I started in STEM and then I went into the arts and then back. And I have found that a lot of artists have this amazing discipline and tradition about, taking themselves on artist dates or writing in a journal every day. I mean, that's from a book called The Artist's Way, but they are extremely disciplined in creating space so that their work can come through. And what I observed is it's extremely similar to scientists as well, that science is as creative a field as the arts. And so my first thing would be to approach your science like you would being an artist or a scientist, and be a scientist and take it seriously, commit to that experience every day. So curiosity is number one. And number two, I think was, Marissa, you had that fantastic quote about, you've got to see it. Visualize, you got to see it to be it. Sorry. It was, it was a great quote. But yeah, to do that as well. Like, I was incredibly inspired by both scientists and amazing artists, and that always gave me a focus on where I wanted to go. And I guess the third is just determination and continue, just always get back up and always keep going. Because there's some extraordinary mentors, seek out mentors, but keep going, step up, and keep going back when it's really tough. And I've had fantastic stories about how there are so many challenges, both just in the work, but then also through the career of, the challenges of feeling like you should quit, and just keep getting up and keep going and keep holding space.
Thank you.
Oh, there's so many more things than three that I would, but yeah, I would agree with 100% everything you just said. And I think the one thing that I can add is to get out and create opportunities to travel and to meet people. And, we talk about being discriminated against. We talk about, yes, all of that happens every day, 100%. I mean, I work in an industry where there's 13% women. I mean, it's just, you just kind of have to stand your ground, and you are who you are. And you're going to be who you are. And if you want people to listen to you, find the right people. Because if those people aren't going to listen to me about the building details that I want to incorporate, they're not going to get the project. That's how I've, if I could teach young women anything, it's to situate yourself in a place of power for yourself through education and self-confidence, and through mentorship and learning from male and female mentors about how it is to stand up for what is right, but also enough to back down and have humility to ask the questions and say, do you know what, I'm probably wrong about that. What would you do? You need to be able to have such a balance. And I was talking to my colleague Kate today about how I would answer this question. And we really, as two women in a woman-driven company, I guess we attract women as well, which is awesome. But we have to display a level of confidence, but we can't be overconfident, because then we're a little bit too confident. And then we know a bit too much about building and construction, and stick to your design and your beautiful pictures, and so it has to be such an interesting balance. And I actually don't know if it's because I'm a woman or because I'm an American or because I'm there's all these different layers that you can put on it. But at the end of the day, if you are confident in what you're doing, but earn that confidence for yourself. Don't earn it for other people. Earn it for yourself. And I think all of the strong women up here would definitely have had experiences where they've learned to have confidence in themselves. And that's how they've grown their careers.
Thank you.
So I think if you want to go down the road that we went through, the academic road, for anybody, the single most important attribute you can have, and you can disagree with me, It's the ability to accept failure and to accept criticism. When you know, our bread and butter as scientists is to publish manuscripts, publish journals, publish our work. And the very first time that you do that as a PhD student, you get the comments back from the experts in the field and they rip you apart. It is horrifying at first, like for a young PhD student to see the work that they've poured so much into just to be criticized. It's a lot. So to be able to see, I don't even want to say criticism, feedback, to accept feedback and to be able to grow from that is a really important attribute. The second one I would say, and I don't know, this might be a little bit controversial, but I would say don't worry about time, because as women, and I'm sure you all agree, we were told, well, I was told, all right, well, you need to do your undergraduate by the time you're 21. And then if you're going to do a master's, get that done straight away. And then you have to do your PhD straight away, get that done within 3 years, because then you need to have your babies. Yeah. So you need to, yeah. So that's what we were kind of told. And I just want to tell young women, don't worry about it. Do what you want to do. Time, it doesn't matter. If you want to have children, if you want to have a family, do it. If you want to, be like me, stay child free and take your time. I did 10-year postdoc. Do it. And if you just want to delay, go travel, go work and experience the world, come back as a mature age student. My best students are the ones who have had other careers. They've explored the world, they've had their families, and they're now kind of even older than me, and they're now doing their undergraduate for the first time, and they are just the most wonderful students. So that's only two, criticism and don't worry about time, but that's all I can think of right now. I'll leave it for you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, I totally agree with all of those. Some fantastic suggestions. And yeah, just to build on that, yeah, being able to take criticism, that's a big one. And that really feeds into that resilience. You really need to be resilient to be in science. Yeah, I don't know, poultry science is brutal. Like,
so it's neuroscience.
I've nearly seen punch-ups at conferences before. And yeah, my professor used to say, like, oh, geez, Amy's, water off a duck's back. And you really have to be like that. Yeah, especially when you're just starting out and you do get a lot of things wrong, and just being able to, I don't know the answer to that question, and just being able to say that in front of a room full of hundreds of people, it's, yeah. But then also having the confidence in your abilities, and being able to stand up for yourself too. I think a lot of women they don't apply for the award or the job promotion or the job just because they're not quite sure if they're quite there yet. I think that's the experience of a lot of them. But it's just putting yourself out there and just going for it anyway. Like, have the confidence. The worst people are going to say is no. So again, it's being able to then take that criticism, I suppose, that no. If you're not in it, you can't win it. And then getting back to just being creative as well. Like, it's so important in the sciences as well as the arts, and creative about career pathways and things like that, and about how we tackle our problems in science, and just how we approach life in general. I think having an open mind, and if we were all more open-minded, we wouldn't be up here talking about this stuff. Yeah.
Marissa.
Everyone said such wise things already. I think the things that resonated most with me was the idea of being curious. Like, I think to foster that in a young person is very important. And the time one hit me hard. To not worry about that. That was something I experienced myself. But maybe to add would be to think about being good in a team. I don't do anything by myself at work, in terms of research, right? Like, I have my own research questions, but I rope in all sorts of amazing people to help me answer them. And so, yeah, you do have to be humble. You've got to listen to the criticism. You've got to be ready to listen to your collaborators. and take their feedback on board and be that good team member, so that you can get the work done together, I think.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you. We could have had a very, very detailed and a much longer discussion than we did. It was all amazing and interesting, but thank you for giving us your insights. I think the 16-year-old feels a lot better after having spoken to you. Thank you. I'd like to now call upon the new Chancellor of the University of New England, Dr. Sarah Pearson, and she has some comments to make from her perspective in relation to STEM and also in relation to this new branch of the Royal Society of New South Wales. So let's welcome Dr. Pearson.
Hello, thank you very much. Thank you. I think it's Vicki, is it? Lovely to be there, not in person, but at least here with you today. I'd like to start with acknowledgement of the traditional owners of the lands that we're all meeting on today and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I'm here on the lands of the Yuggera and the Turrbal people in a place some call Meanjin or others know as Brisbane. I'd also love to just say how exciting it is to be part of a culture that can point back to over 60,000 years of a continuous culture of science and innovation. I'm not sure if people know, but it was the people of Australia that discovered variable stars thousands of years before the Western world even got telescopes to get out there and have a look at them. So we've got loads to be very, very proud of in Australia as we look back. And talking of pride, it was so great. Kate, Jena, Rebecca, Amy, Marissa, I hope I've got you all right. Thank you so much for your time and your insights. You have got so much resilience and ingenuity. It's just awesome to have heard you. So thanks for all that you do every day, as well as what you've done today. So I was asked to speak about my experiences in STEM and then why I think this would be a valuable, what you're doing is so valuable for the region. And I thought, you know what, I'll start with a short version, which is my experience has been absolutely amazing and awesome. And incredibly challenging all at the same time. And I thought rather than go through all of the eclectic career I've been through, I want to talk about how awesome women are to encourage you to see all of us as being really, really important to the future of Australia and the world. And one part of that to start with is actually about parity and how long that has taken and how long it's likely to take. So the bad news is that the projections of how long it's going to take to get to parity, the numbers I see have numbers greater than 100 years, which is very, very upsetting. And when you think about COVID and what that's done for us, in some parts of the world set us back by a whole generation. And in other parts of the world, you start to think, well, perhaps we're even going backwards. But what I've seen in that panel today and what I know to be true is that we as women and women in STEM, we're strong, we're resilient, we're supporting one another, we've made a lot of progress, we're inspiring each other, and we're inspiring the next generation. And your event today is such a wonderful example of that. And as the new incoming Chancellor, I would love to help in whatever ways I can. I'd also love us to move beyond the deficit model. I just get fed up of the narrative, which is, it's the fair thing to do and women should be allowed to have a go. They deserve to be included. I call that out. Women are awesome and the world needs us. If you look at the stats that Australia's Workplace Gender Equality Agency put out recently, apparently companies who appoint a female CEO increase their market value by 5%, which is worth nearly about 80 million to an average ASX 200 company. So why would you not? We are awesome in business. Gender equality has been found to be the best predictor of a country's overall stability and prosperity. That's the Development Finance Corporation work done on a global level. So if you want peace, then get women to have great positions, to be in leadership, to be engaged, and get rid of that gender gap, because you can have greater peace with us in those positions. So let's get on the front foot. We are really, really good for the world, both economically and socially. And then when you come to the world of STEM, we're even more important. It's even more important that we have our place, we walk up and we do the wonderful things that I heard you all doing on the panel today. I'm sure you know all the stories about how artificial intelligence is skewed if we leave it to the white males to code. Now, sorry guys in the audience, you're awesome, love what you do, but you really need our brains too. And sadly, that's nothing new. I heard someone, I think it might have been Rebecca, talking about PPE equipment. It's actually designed for men. So as a woman, the masks don't fit. How crazy is that? Crash dummies are designed for male bodies. So actually women are less safe in cars than men are. Heart disease, we only really know about it in men. And the clitoris got wiped out of medical education and research for decades. I've seen papers where they've just wiped it out. So, women, we really need to be involved in all these new things that are being developed with emerging technology and science. And then the jobs that we're going to get from this, 75% of future high growth jobs need STEM, and 65% of them don't even exist yet. So if women want to be engaged in these high growth, well-paid, rewarding jobs, then we really need to be engaging in STEM and engaging in these emerging technologies and these emerging industries. And on the entrepreneurship piece, I tend to encourage young women, well, set up your own company. Then you don't have to worry about culture because you can set your own culture. It's almost like if you set up a company, you set up the playing field, like the sport that you want to play in your company and the culture you want around it, you can set it up. So there are lots of opportunities for us as women in the future in terms of STEM and in terms of new industries and new jobs. And I could talk for hours on the topic, but I've only got a short time. So I'm now going to say, why do I think this is really important for the region? I think it's such a huge opportunity to inspire individuals, young and old. I think it was Jena. Was it Jena? You said that your daughter was in the room. Well, hi, Jena's daughter. How amazing that you're watching your mother and seeing how incredible she is. It's really important to show young women what you can be in STEM. But it's also important to show some of the older people too, because they will be influencing the young people. So we really need to be inspiring all ages. And I know that this branch will do that. Also, in my experience, people in regions are so ingenious. I mean, we've had to be in regions. You've had to be ingenious. And so there's a lot for us to do in terms of unlocking that genius within the region, showing them a pathway to impact, both for themselves and for the world. So how will this branch engage with the regional genius, those regional insights to solve global challenges? Because the challenges we face, they're not linear. I think I heard Kate, or maybe it was Jena, talking about ecosystems and the complex systems that you need to work in. Women are really good at dealing with complexity. Just get a couple of kids in the back of the car arguing about who sits where. We're really good at that complexity. And the global challenges we face need those sorts of brains. So how can we get the regional genius with the regional insights to solve these challenges like climate adaptation, net zero, feeding millions, psychological safety and well-being, aging with dignity, and maybe even a new way to organize ourselves that we can live with a sense of humanity that we were born with. These are things that I can see so much that your branch that you're launching today will be able to help with. And lastly, how does this group act as a hub nationally and globally to draw together an interdisciplinary approach to solving these big challenges? I love the fact that you're about science, art, literature, and philosophy. STEM is undeniably awesome, but in combination with art and literature and philosophy, it's absolutely transformational. So I'm going to end it there and say many thanks again for the kind invitation. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I'm so very, very much with you in spirit. Very happy to help in any ways that I can. Many, many thanks for the people who've got this going and got it started in our region. And I'm looking forward to hearing your stories of impact and meeting as many of you in the near future as I can. Quickly before I finish, I also meant to thank Trevor. Trevor, thank you so much for the invitation to be part of today. I think I'm day 4. It's wonderful to be able to engage. But much more than that, Trevor and his colleague Mark Spackman were so crucial to me when I started back in a career after 7 years of staying at home as a mother, pretty much full time. And it was a big, big deal to launch back into the world of academia. And Trevor and Mark were really, really, well, I couldn't have done it without them. So many, many thanks to you. I know that you support women, and it's great that we have this event tonight and all the work that's going forwards. Thank you.
Now I'm going to call upon the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Chris Moran, to offer a vote of thanks to all of the people who have spoken and taken part in today. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a bit of a feeling Professor Pearson just did it. But I made a few scribbles, and let me try to decode some of them. I actually also want to acknowledge this place and the place where all the university all the places where the University of New England works, learns, plays and teaches, and pay respects to the knowledge holders in all of those places. I want to start with a reflection I made here. Dr. Moss, your realisation of the double take on mothering time, becoming efficiency, becoming a superpower. I reflected on the curriculum vitae of our new Chancellor in one of the meetings, I think with Council or with the University Executive, where I pointed out on the very long section in that curriculum vitae on executive experience was mother. I think 2 or 3 dot points from the bottom. And what I said in the meeting was that is not there by accident. That is there by design. So don't lose that. Don't lose that thought. Don't lose that superpower. I really enjoyed. I think it's such an inspired. I don't know, Trevor. I don't know whose idea it was to ask this group of people to address us tonight. That we've had a seesaw, haven't we, in the balance of the things we love against the things that mitigate against it. We had another seesaw, which is, I think, when I was postdocing, it'd be hard to find a female on the panel, and now I get to be the token male, having somewhere along the line done the balance. So, thank you for this. Thank you for the wonderful choice of topic and these speakers. You all inspire. But there's a few things that I wanted to pull out that I thought were really important for our university, and our university does, I think, centre the new branch. I'll call it the new branch from the old. It was nice to hear some history of the old, and I think it's really inspirational that University of New England should be attaching again firmly to the roots of academe, intelligence, emotional and artistic. So thank you for your support and your words to us at the beginning. I think they were very carefully chosen and very well put. One thing I think the University of New England should really strive for, and it's been on display everywhere here tonight and also in our moderator, is humility. It's come up a few times, but humility doesn't come with a sense of lack of competence. Is there any lack of competence here? There's no lack of competence, but there's a wonderful humility. I don't know whether it's necessarily dominantly a female trait, but it's something that you can teach us from the minority numbers to teach more people that sense of humility. It's the sense of arrogance that in many cases is holding institutions back. And I think it's a problem with our institution, University of New England. So please don't lose that thing that you held and that you communicated with us and helped teach us about. I thought it was also interesting and somewhat distressing to hear what the kind of quotable quotes that each of you have held, that I'd like to invite you to give up, get rid of them. And I'm going to misquote you a little bit here because it helps my story. But here they come, a few of them. I was told, stick to your knitting or take up knitting. Education and natural light. Isn't that a woman thing? Isn't that a woman thing? It's just a tonal thing, isn't it, right? You just turned it around on them, as you say. Go find the people of power and find your power place and work with the people who work with you to find that power. I think they're wonderful, wonderful terms and thoughts. The scourge of the 12-month contract. I've battled it. I've battled it for a long time. I lived on 12-month and then 5-year contracts. I went to work one morning and someone put a piece of paper in front of me and said, "Would you like to sign this?" So I'm like, "What is it?" It's a permanent job. Someone from the top, somewhere in the CSIRO many years ago, has just said, "Make them all permanent." No, I thought it was a trick. And a bit like one of the others, take the whole weekend. I'll text you tomorrow morning. I just signed that thing, you know. And then a few years later, I gave it up. I've been on contract ever since. But there are things that can be done from the top, and I guess I would encourage you all to signal that to us if we're missing it, or we appear not to be noticing, or we appear ignorant. Just signal it. We need to be open. We're not all knowing, all powerful, all anything really, and so getting the meeting of the top authority, if you like, and the bottom knowledge, I think is incredibly important. So thank you for the way you put that together. And I've been doing quick Googling there. You're not Dr. Betts, you're Associate Professor Betts, which is just the most recent round, or is this a confusion on Google, or have we just accidentally promoted her? Did I just promote her? She'll sign. They were the notes I didn't get. The geoscience free fall. I came from Curtin University with a very deep and long history in geoscience, and we saw it. And our decision was just simple. We're just doubling down on geoscience. Like, if the rest are going to go away. So Chris, maybe you and I better have a chat about making sure it doesn't just go away. And the late career start, Kate Tronastic, some of you will be working with Kate Tronastic. She's just fabulous. A fantastic late career researcher, doing amazing things, publishing anywhere anyone would wish to publish. Again, Dr. Betts, supervising students is a privilege, and somehow all my students are female, but I didn't design it. I haven't been in this situation for a while, unfortunately, and hopefully we get in this situation again. But I was, as Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Research, really able to invest in not just the leaky pipe, but the scissor. You didn't point out to the scissor, which is where we really lose them, is at level D, Associate Professor, where the institutions don't have enough intelligence, like basic intelligence, to plan properly with the person going on maternity leave, what they want and how they want to return to work. This seems such a simple thing, and it's apparently a difficult thing to do, because that's when the huge shift occurs. The shift occurs level C. We're just about parity still from the beginning of PhD and postdoc, and then level E, bang, the whole thing switches. And it's that period of how do you get back if your institution is not looking after you to come back, because there's a deficit. Sorry, there is a deficit there, and the deficit is the output volume that doesn't occur when women are looking after children and having babies. And the system has got to adjust to that, not just in terms of let's see whether we can do some kind of a correction later, but the males who are sitting on the panels and the males who are in the supervisory positions have to let go. They have to let go, not as good because not as many. It's a psychological thing that has to be let go, so that the conversations that occur for promotion and the conversations that occur with people to encourage them to go for promotion have a naturalness of expectation, not the need for a separation statement, a deficit statement at the beginning of a promotion case. I'm not suggesting the statement should go away, because we're not yet mature enough to let it go away. It needs to be there. But for people to say, I'm not ready because someone said, I was told I'm not ready. I think I heard that. I'm told I'm not ready. So we need to be ready. We need to be ready for you. And the thought that I didn't finish there is, when I was doing recruitment and looking for people, I told people all over my university, go and look for departments that are fantastic, that are world-renowned, that are led by women. And you'll find all the women postdocs you want. Go and look for departments that are led by white guys, Asian guys, and look at the associate professors, because they'll all be stuck. So it's not that hard to find women if you go and look. It's awfully hard to find them if you ask for them like that in a job advertisement. Equal opportunity. Doesn't work. You've got to go and look. You've got to go and build those numbers, and we've got to go and bring the people into our university. So please don't despair with what you see around you. Please continue to push us. Whether we're male or female in charge, it should be the same. It shouldn't be different. So thank you. Professor Bitsika, beautifully managed, beautiful questions. Thank you very much for guiding the panel into a really interesting set of discussions. You could have heard a pin drop in here several times when you were leading from the front here this afternoon, or this evening, I guess. We're getting into the evening. I just want to end, Dr. Williams, with your quotable quote. It's difficult being a scientist. It is difficult being a scientist. It's difficult being a scientist in this country, and it's difficult being a scientist in this university. There is marginalisation of regional universities. I yell a lot about that, and I'll continue to yell about that, but I think we need to convert yelling into strategic change. So I'll be coming looking for all of you next year, but particularly where it's difficult, and not just assuming that my own lived experience or my own recent experiences in trying to listen to people of what your lived experiences are. If we're going to shift the strategy of the institution, or we're going to move our institution into a different place, we've got to find ways for the voices to come forward. And they have to be a much more general voice. There has to be a much more, many more voices coming forward in our institution. Like many, I guess, it's that terrible triangular thing again, isn't it? That the voices get fewer as you get higher, and then you get the levelees, and they sit there, and then they talk to the people above it, and then you get a white guy to run it, and here we are. It's like hard to be apologetic to be how you were born, but yeah, I'm an old white guy with no hair. I'm all right. I'm parenting, or I try. So recently promoted Associate Professor Betts, Dr. Betts. I'll find out for you where it is online. Professor Betts, Dr. Betts, Dr. Williams. I don't know. We didn't give the qualifications other than an assumed bachelor's for the two of you, which is interesting. So Ms. Glover, Ms. Armstrong-Smith, and Dr. Moss, thank you. Thank you for educating us. Thank you for taking us through your life's journey. And thank you for being part of STEM and helping to launch the new branch. That I think we have more people in the room than members. So I suggest we better get some membership forms and lock the back door. Thank you very much. Please give me a round of applause.
Thank you, Vice-Chancellor. That brings our meeting and our evening to a close. It's been absolutely inspiring, and I feel like rather than ending something, we've begun a very important conversation that needs to continue and strengthen and grow over time. So thank you, everyone.